Hi everyone, welcome to the Movie Section Show. My name is Fariba, and before I get right down into my trailer reaction for Friday Nights at Freddy's, I want to just talk about video game, movie adaptations that we had so far. I think, without a doubt, this has been quite a very big year for, movies based on video games. Or it's not just that, but just any sort of project, any sort of adaptation based upon video games. So both in the movie and TV sphere. Of course, the first thing that kind of comes into our mind is The Last of Us, that literally kind of soared into popularity on HBO Max and really kind of changed the trajectory, kind of changed our mindset of how we started to perceive about, projects based on video games. Because before that time, with the exception of maybe a few Sonic the Hedgehog and all that sort of stuff, for us, when we think about movies based upon video games, right? So adapted from video games. A lot of times the movies or, even TV shows don't tend to do well. The stories are not as faithful to the story, or whenever there are some creative changes, it doesn't really stick the landing, or when there is some creative changes, or when they don't even take any creative changes and stick to the, actual story from the video games, it doesn't really kind of mesh too well to its, adapted medium. But when we look at this year, right, this has been a really big year for, projects based on video games. Of course, I said Last of Us. Another one that, has really kind of crushed the whole mindset, kind of crushed expectations of everything we've known, is Super Mario Bros., which is so far the only movie so far this year to have crossed the $1 billion mark. So that is huge. It's so remarkable to see how this has been quite a year for, projects based upon video games. And now, of course, we're still going to have more. I know we're going to have Friday Nights at Freddy's, which we're going to watch the trailer for in a couple minutes, as well as some other ones like Gran Turismo. So that's going to be another big video game. I don't know if it's how big it is, but I'm very familiar with the movie that's coming out, but that is also going to be based upon the actual video game itself. So yeah, we do have quite some more, movies, TV shows based upon video games are coming out still yet to come out. But yeah, no, I'm so all for it. It definitely is a huge change in tides for how, this whole genre has been after having been adapted so many times before. And now it's okay, we're finally getting to kind of this period, this era where we're actually seeing some very good, movies and TV shows based upon, the video game. So yeah, of course, the next one I can't wait to see is Friday Night at Freddy's. I am actually pretty familiar with this video game, although I've never played it myself. I am familiar with the games. I've actually, when I was younger, probably back when I was maybe late in my high school year or college, I've actually watched a lot of gameplays from some, gamers on YouTube, and I used to watch Friday Nights at Freddy's, and it's really interesting to, see this come into, the limelight, to become this own, film media now, just because, I recall, having seen this game, watching it, viewing it as, a spectator from, reaction or someone else playing it. And I'm pretty familiar with how the game works. You have to survive the game throughout the night up until, it's the next morning. And it's quite the interesting concept. I know it's going to be very tricky going into the movie adaptation for it, because the game itself was just mostly about the security guard who has to, has to kind of survive the night and hope that, whatever these animatronic animals or whatever, right, don't kill him, I guess. And so that's kind of just it. It's a pretty basic premise, but it's still a very widely, popular game that I think even to this day is still very popular. And now it's okay, now we're going to see this entirely different movie. This movie that's supposed to be an adaptation of this game that has such a simple concept to it. And now they have to make it into I'm going to say roughly 90 minutes to a 2-hour movie. So I'm very interested to see how, the creators, the actors try to play around with this whole, how they try to play around the concept of the game and try to imbue it into the actual movie. So, but even that being the case, right? The cast looks really amazing. You have Josh Hutcherson. I've watched this guy when he was a childhood actor, and then of course during his Hunger Game times, and now it's like we're kind of having this renaissance of seeing Josh Hutcherson back on the big screen. So that's amazing. And of course Matthew Lilliard, like who doesn't know Matthew Lilliard? I mean, I love this guy. I mean, for me, I know him from, as Scooby-Doo. I know a lot of people know him as Stu Mulcher from Scream. For me, it's all about Scooby-Doo, so I know him as, Shaggy Rogers. So, and I actually had a chance to meet him a couple months ago, and he's a really sweet, awesome guy. So, yeah, no, I mean, this is a movie that I'm really looking forward to seeing. I hope that it continues the video games trend that's been going on so far this year, and I hope that we get to see a similar sort of success with this film. But yeah, I think having said all I need to say about it, without further ado, let's get right down into the trailer reaction for Friday Nights at Freddy's.
Hi, this is Mike. I was just calling to see if that job that you offered was still available.
Yes. The security guard.
I will take anything.
This place was huge in the 80s with the kids. They shut it down years ago. The owner's just not ready to let it go yet.
I will work and you will sleep.
I understand.
Oh.
Come here, Ann.
There's a twist there.
All you have to do is keep your eyes on the monitor.
Welcome to Freddy Fazbear's, where fantasy and fun come to life.
Okay.
You must be new security guard.
Can I help you, officer?
Have you met them yet?
Met who?
Them.
The animatronics. Oh my god.
In the 80s, kids went missing. The police searched Freddy's top to bottom.
Hello?
Oh.
They never found them. That's why the place shut down.
There are ghost children possessing giant robots. Thanks for the heads up.
Technically, they're animatronics.
What do they want?
They want to make her like them.
Pappy! Tell me how to stop them.
It's too late.
Pappy, go!
Oh.
Where to?
Oh, that's very twisty.
Why do I always get the weirdos?
Oh my god. Oh, that was a trailer for Friday Nights at Freddy's, and yeah, that's a very good impression. I mean, it definitely has this very suspenseful, horror-ish vibes to it. Nothing, less than I expected out of it. Again, like, I've watched the gameplays of these, of this game before, and I'm pretty familiar with the actual general concept of it. And it's very interesting how they are elevating, this, not the concept, but just how they're going to approach the story overall. Just because, like, when you look at the game, like, it's a pretty thin plot. Like, all you have to do is just do this. And yet, even though it's supposed to be a basic job, it's actually far more difficult than it shows itself to be. So, knowing that this is now going to be the movie, like, it's very intriguing to see how they're going to try and adapt it. They're adding a lot of aspects to it. The fact that, Josh Hutcherson's character is the one who's playing the security guard is bringing, I'm assuming, his sister to stay with him, or a daughter. I have to like check on this, but this young girl that's with him, and she's gonna be playing a big role in this movie. That is a very interesting twist right there, because I don't think I've ever noticed that ever in the game as like having this detail. So that's gonna be a very interesting thing. Like, there's even at the end of the trailer where it seems as though she is connecting with the animatronics, just as the police officer was talking about. And so it sounds like they really kind of laid out the grounds of what this movie is going to be about, which is great, because that alone is really a very good thing, knowing that, okay, there is at least a plot in mind. So that's me a very good thing overall, because I think, again, one of the biggest issues going into this film, it was going to be kind of how they're going to actually make this into a movie, just because of how the actual rules of the game, how the actual, story of the actual game itself, it's nothing more than just a security guard staying in his room, looking at the monitors and checking to see where all these animatronics are and making sure that he can survive the night, right? So in this case, it looks like it's going to be multiple nights. So it definitely has an essence of what the games are like. Like, you got to try and survive multiple nights, and each night gets harder and harder and harder. So that's kind of the vibe I'm getting right here. So just overall, just seeing this trailer, it's very promising. Just knowing that they were like the creators, the filmmakers, the people who are involved in the creative aspect of trying to figure out the story for this, were able to kind of resolve a lot of the issues without losing kind of what made Friday Nights at Freddy's. I think you can get the essence of that, the animatronics, like the actual visuals. And I don't know if they're using CGI or if they're actually using like, actual animatronics themselves, like that they're going to use in this movie. Like, I don't know how they're, trying to replicate the actual animatronics from the games to the film. I'm going to assume that they actually built them or created them from hand. So like more of the practical effects. So if that's the case, that is awesome. I mean, I hope to learn more about it as we get closer and closer to the movie's release. But yeah, no, they really sucked the landing and just like really getting the imageries of those animatronics, the villains of, of this movie from what we got from the games. And it seems as if they're going to be very, very faithful. Like, they're going to try and make sure that they're going to be faithful to what the game has, while also making sure that, there is going to be something a bit more deep with what the story is going to be about, what the movie is going to, undergo as part of its, I guess you can say your mission, not your gameplay, of course, but what they have to undergo in terms of surviving these really creepy animatronics that they have to kind of save themselves from. And yeah, again, it seems like a really cool idea. I mean, there are some subtle humor here and there, so that is great to see. Like, even though it is a Friday Nights, even though it does have this horror-esque, atmosphere, especially because it is coming from the games, there are adding in the subtle hints of humor in there, so which again, it makes sense because you're trying to balance out the actual tone of it. And I think in a case like this, where you have something that's that involves some campy villains like these, like animatronics, like it makes sense to add this touch of humor, this touch of wit. So yeah, overall, I can't wait to see what's going to happen. Again, I'm not too deep into the lore of Friday Nights at Freddy's, although again, I'm very aware of the basic idea, the basic story, what happened in the games. I have an idea of how they work. I know what actually happens in the game. I've actually seen the actual gameplays for them, so at least knowing that, like, I feel a bit more comfortable knowing what this movie is going to be about when the movie does come out. I believe it's at Halloween's, right? So it's going to be coming out in October. But yeah, no, that was a very promising trailer. I know that this is actually the longer trailer that we got. I think we had a teaser a couple months ago or so, and now we actually got a full trailer. And I think, again, the fact that they were able to kind of checkmark a lot of a lot of things that were a bit concerning going into this movie is a very good sign. So I hope that, again, that when this movie does come out in a couple months from now, that, it continues off the trend for video games, right? I think it's not just like trying to be a part of this legacy for Friday Nights at Freddy's franchise, but also kind of continuing this great pattern, this great mainstream thing that we've been seeing so far with video games. And I think that this movie has so much promise. Again, the cast looks great. You have Lilliard, you have Josh Hutcherson. I don't remember the actress's name, but I've seen her from You. She played Guinevere Beck, or I remember her as Beck. So yeah, very interesting story right there. I can't wait to see it. And I think, yeah, I mean, hopefully, again, like, we'll get a lot more details of what's going to happen, what's going to be taking place throughout this whole, film. And again, I have a lot of expectations for it, so I can't wait to see it when it comes out in November. But yeah, not November, sorry, October. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say about this trailer. I think I've basically touched upon everything I need to say about it, because again, I'm not too familiar with the games to the point where I'm like a diehard, but I'm a very casual viewer to it. But yeah, what are your thoughts about this trailer? Have you played the games? Have you not? What are your impressions having seen this trailer? Do you think there's a really great balance of, you know, the faithfulness, trying to be really true to the material while also making sure that they can add a bit more of this creativity to make it so that it is appropriate for a 2-hour, maybe slightly less, runtime film? What are your thoughts overall with what we've seen so far? What do you think about sort of the story that they, hinted at? The fact that we're going to see the security guard who happens to have this young girl with him, either his sister or his daughter. I gotta look that up. What are your thoughts about that? What do you think about the casting itself? Like, how do you think about Josh Hutcherson and Matthew Lilliard in this film? I mean, for me, I think that's just great. I mean, just for that, like, I think I'm super excited to see this film. But what are your thoughts about that? And what are some things that you're expecting as you get closer and closer to the film's release that's supposed to be coming out in October? Let me know in the comments down below, and make sure to like and subscribe.